Welcome to Ninerology, Faithful in the Trenches. I'm your host, Alan, and the 49ers are no longer in need of a defensive coordinator because as of this morning, reported by Adam Schefter himself, the 49ers have made two prominent hires, one for their defensive coordinator and another to fill the assistant head coach position that was formerly filled by Steve Wilks and before him, Anthony Lynn. And who are those hires? Well, the new defensive coordinator is now Nick Sorensen, promoted from within the 49ers' existing staff, and the outside hire is Brandon Staley to potentially be the new assistant head coach. So, you might be wondering, who is Nick Sorensen? How should we know him? Well, he has been on the staff for the past couple of years. He's been a defensive assistant in 2022. 2023, this past year, he was the DB's coach, so worked really close with Charvarius Ward, but also helped with the building and developing of Diamador Lenore when we saw what great of a season he had. But I think ultimately the biggest thing is he is a protege of Pete Carroll. He learned under his tutelage for the past 8 years before moving to the 49ers, so he knows the defensive scheme that the 49ers want to run because, let's face it, that's where they had the most success under Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans, who adopted that system. So not only does it get back to the core roots in which the defense has thrived under, it brings that back, but also a nice little flavor because Sorensen is viewed as an up-and-coming coach who's eventually going to be a head coach, and so I think this is a great hire. It's an internal hire, so it helps with the locker room. But let's face it, this is his first gig as a defensive coordinator. So I think that's also why Brandon Staley was hired, because he's been a defensive coordinator before. Granted, it was 1 year, but that 1 year, the team was the number one defense in the NFL, won the Super Bowl. It was a year with the Rams. Yes, he didn't do too hot when he called the plays for the Chargers as the head coach, but maybe he's just a great coordinator in his one stint as a coordinator, and that's all he had to focus on. He did great. So I think in this role, it's going to be more of a reporting directly to the head coach, to Kyle Shanahan, on how Sorensen's doing. Because it's Sorensen's first gig as a defensive coordinator, and the 49ers window is closing, it makes sense to bring in two people for that. So Sorensen's going to be that defensive coordinator, and Brandon Staley, I believe, is going to kind of help with that, kind of give some pointers, some tips, but also report back to Kyle. And I also think this benefits the 49ers in the future because with Sorensen there, he's an up-and-comer, but I think next year, if it doesn't work out, there's a lot of rumors that Saleh is on very thin ice, and if he doesn't make it with the Jets, if they don't go far into the playoffs, he's gone. I could see Shanahan swooping right in and bringing Saleh back, and so I think this does solve for multiple things. But props to the 49ers for finally naming a defensive coordinator before the combine's over. And that way now they can focus on the offseason, on rebuilding, retooling, getting that defensive line, but also working on that offensive line, drafting some offensive linemen, some tackles, some guards, and really building so we can rerun this thing and get that quest for 6, that number 6 Lombardi. Well, that's all we have for you today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to us on Ninerology and get all the Niners content, and we'll see you next time.